You are live. Welcome to the Shoy Show. It is Tuesday, August 18th, 2026. Are you happy to be alive? I hope you are. I hope anyone that you have lost, I hope you appreciate them. I hope you recognize that they're still with you. I hope you realize that life is extremely short and that we all have such a finite amount of time on this earth. And man, if we don't do something with that time, well, we'll probably regret it, no matter where we end up. So yes, I am thankful. I have thanked God multiple times today. I'm happy to be doing the show, something that I want to do. And above all else, I thought about this multiple times today on this only day that we're ever going to get, right? We're only going to get one of these days. We're only going to get to label this time period, this time slot, August 18th, 2026, one time. I thought about us being nice to one another. I mean, seriously, look at how we treat each other. War, racism. We are extremely disgusting human beings. Now, it's natural. That's what human beings do. I'm not excusing our behavior, but man, we are extremely audacious to one another. As if we don't appreciate the finite amount of time that we have on this earth. It's as if we're immortal the way we treat each other. Dropping bombs, disparaging one another. Overall, if you read the news, it doesn't look like we have much regard for one another. But overall, we do. We have a lot of tolerance for each other. Else, I don't think we'd be able to coexist. So with that, let's get on with our first topic. The absurdity of America's war with Iran. You know what I saw today? A video from 5 months ago when we started attacking Iran, and it was amazing. But before we get into any of that, let's hear what Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, which has done a really good job of calming markets in this second term for Trump. Let's hear what he has to say on the Iranian war, specifically the Strait of Hormuz.
Some have speculated the strait will never go back to being the way it was before. What would you say?
I think they're saying that in a doomsday sort of way. I would say it in another way. The strait is never going back to the way it was because the Iranians have used or tried to use it as a choke point. What we are going to see over the next 2 years, the strait's going to become irrelevant. It is going to become just another body of water. And I would say that more than 50 or 70% of the energy that moves through the strait now is going to go through underground pipelines.
Some have speculated the strait will never go back to being the way it was before. What would you say?
Oh, now the strait's irrelevant. You see the game they play? Y'all, look at the timeline of history. We have leaders that come and they go. They tell us one thing, they tell us the next. It doesn't matter. One thing after the next. Who's keeping track? Who's keeping count? Who writes the history books? The people in charge. The things the actual context behind any one period, the Babylonian Empire, Ptolemaic Egypt, Roman Empire, Greek Empire, Christianity, the Moors, whatever you want to call it. The details within any historic period, within any period of time, you could say is trivial. I think that's treading on, some dangerous water there. You can't really say that because history does matter. But any one detail in history, does it really matter? For instance, what do you think is going to happen when either Iran or the United States or both finally say, we come to an agreement? What do you think they're going to tell their people? What do you think they're going to tell the world? They don't care about anything else. They're both going to declare victory. What do you think happened in any other period of time in history? Who actually acquiesces? Unless you get killed, right? You're an emperor and you just get killed. Then you kind of have no say in the matter. It's really incumbent on the historians that either support you or oppose you to write how it all happened. But when we get to these details, us attacking Iran in 2026, you think any American wanted to do this? I mean, let's start with the narrative from the beginning. Hey, we need to attack Iran. We need to make sure that they don't have nuclear weapons, that there's no nuclear enrichment, that they're not a threat in the region. Okay. I mean, let's come back to it, right? We all woke up one day and we were like, what? What the fuck? Did you care? I didn't. I was like, Iran? I wasn't even thinking about Iran. Yeah, sometimes you have a politician in the United States that says something about Iran. You'll hear Netanyahu over there in Israel talking about Iran. But did it matter to the average American? No. All I cared about was getting my snacks and watching my movies. Doing the shoyshow, But then one day, this happened.
And good evening. We begin tonight with the escalating battle over one of the world's most vital shipping channels. The U.S. and Iran trading new threats around the Strait of Hormuz, sending gas prices skyrocketing here in the U.S. This new video just into our newsroom showing strikes on more than a dozen Iranian vessels, including what the military said were ships that could have laid explosive mines in the strait. The president warning if Iran attacked ships there, the U.S. would hit back even harder. That comes just hours after the defense secretary vowed, in his words, the most intense day of strikes yet. That intensity on full display in these new videos. Launchers firing and intercepting Iranian missiles in the sky.
This was 5 months ago, y'all. 5 months ago. I mean, that's how fast the time went. And of course, President Trump initially came out and said 3 to 4 weeks, 5 to 6 weeks. But Iran was never a problem for you and I. It only became a problem because the historian, in this case, Donald Trump, our White House, our government, said it was a problem. Now, if you were old enough for Iraq and Afghanistan, we said the same thing. They have weapons of mass destruction. We even had an acronym for it, WMD. And we had the UN go in, and we had NATO go in. We had independent scientists go in. There was never any proof. We're learning the same lesson today. Them going into Iran, saying that there's a problem, painting a picture for all of us to be amused by, distracting us with a whole bunch of other shit here in the United States in the media, and then fulfilling the true objectives, the ones that we don't see, the hidden agenda that we couldn't possibly be privy to, right? This is all classified information to them, right? We don't know any of this. But the narrative The story that we must accept is that Iran is a threat. We have now made them docile, and we will make them heed to the American heel, to American power. So now you just hear one of the top officials in the United States, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, and he says that the Strait of Hormuz could become irrelevant within the next several years. Okay, whatever you say, we kind of have to accept the narrative. We don't really have a choice. And of course, they're going to try to circumvent this situation from escalating. They want to mitigate this risk in the future. So yeah, it would make sense that we circumvent the strait. He said that they'll introduce new pipelines. However, if you are an investor, if you are interested in seeing oil normalize to levels maybe below $80 a barrel, if you want to see oil, gasoline in your car go back to the three handle, the $3 area, that is not going to happen in the next 2 years unless there is a resolution. Full stop. It's either that or the economy tanks. There is no other alternative. That's why Iran right now has a tremendous amount of leverage. So, Scott Bessent says, Strait of Hormuz, will deem it irrelevant in a couple of years. Is that the new strategy? Whatever you say, White House. Because when this war began on February 28th, Trump and Pete Hegseth told us Iran's military had been destroyed, decimated. You should see what they have over there. They have nothing. They said its nuclear capabilities had been eliminated. Trump has repeatedly declared victory. Who am I supposed to believe? I guess I'm supposed to believe my government, right? That's what any patriotic American would say. But I know my own truth. I know what I've seen reported. I know when there's a slant or any media bias that I must account for. The way I see it is we kicked a hornet's nest, and now we're paying the economic price for it. No plan, extremely haphazard. Who knows how many civilian casualties on that side? Not to mention, of course, the girls' school that was destroyed, 170 girls murdered in cold blood by the United States military. And here we are, 5 months later, in a stalemate. Now, this is why I love markets, because markets speak for themselves. You're seeing bond yields rise. Now, in case you don't understand that correlation, that just means we're feeling a lot of market uncertainty. We're worried about things. What things? You could write your own narrative. It could be anything. It could be the US budget deficit. It could be the war with Iran. It could be oil. It could be inflation. Take your pick. But right now, we are setting records around the world for debt financing. 30-year, 10-year bonds have done nothing else in 2026 other than rise. And as a matter of fact, if you look at a chart from the day the conflict started with Iran, What does this chart tell you? I mean, we haven't seen $80 a barrel since June of 2025. We're not even used to these prices anymore. And you got to ask yourself, did we have $4 gasoline under Biden? For an elongated period, did we? I don't remember seeing that. And that's not to support one president or the other. I'm just calling a spade a spade. So now, after repeatedly declaring victory, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, Department of War Secretary Pete Hegseth, the President of the United States, Donald Trump, saying, we have won this war definitively. Now, it's August 18th, 2026, the middle of August, the dog days of summer. And Trump is reportedly preparing for a longer, drawn-out war. Peace negotiations have collapsed. Oil is back above $90 a barrel. Iran says it is moving into a fully offensive military posture. And now Trump says there are no negotiations taking place and none are scheduled. So if we already won, why are we still trying to figure out how to win? Now, there are many people that say, hey, if you want to accomplish all of these objectives, as far as the United States side is concerned, you're going to have to send in US troops. My fellow American citizen, is that something you are willing to agree to? To send in US service members to fight, essentially to death, to put themselves at the highest level of risk against the enemy that the United States has created. They tell us that this has been our adversary for 70 years. They tell us that they have nuclear weapons and they cannot keep building them. They tell us that Iran is an imminent threat. You woke up one day and found out all this information. You weren't thinking about Iran before February 28th, 2026. You were just living your life, worried about egg prices or whatever, taking care of your niece, your daughter, your son, going to work, going to school, whatever you were doing in your life. And we take efforts to destroy, kill thousands of people across Iran. No congressional approval. No prompt by the American people. We wake up one day and Iran is our enemy. So we've been told not only that they are our number one threat, but that they can also no longer have control over the strait. There can be no Iranian tolls. We are going to enforce nuclear limits and inspections. There must be Iranian compensation for deaths and damage. And our red line now is that there must be no Iranian control, veto, or mandatory tolls. What does Iran say? Oh, they say not so fast. We know that oil is high. We know that gasoline prices are through the roof. We know that this is affecting your inflation. We know that this is affecting your bond yields and ultimately your stock market and ultimately the bedrock of your economy. We also know that although you are going to try to circumvent the Strait of Hormuz, you can't do so fast enough. Therefore, we have a lot more leverage than you think. Because the Iranians, they're not stupid. They know exactly what they're doing. They're playing the exact same game, just on the other side. And these are the demands and concessions currently separating the United States and Iran. Now, I'm not going to read every bullet, but look at what each side wants and what each side has already offered. Iran has offered 60 days of commercial passage without fees, a freeze on additional uranium enrichment during negotiations, and a promise not to produce or acquire a nuclear weapon, and a temporary halt to military operations. Depending on how you feel about our economy, depending on how you feel about Iran, maybe that's good enough. Sounds good enough to me. But what do I know? I'm just a layman. I must listen to my government, right? Big brother. Whatever government says, I say, yes, daddy. Yes, okay, papa. You said Iran is the enemy? Okay. I agree. He's the enemy? Yes, son, he is the enemy. And you must obey. We hate Iran. We hate Iran, right? That's what the government wants us to say. Okay, so I agree. I agree. But something, virtually every fiber of my body tells me that that's wrong. Whom should I trust? What should I trust? Should I trust whatever someone is telling me when I know them to be corrupt and habitual liars? Always trying for some hidden agenda? Or should I trust what I see? Should I trust my own instincts? I'm going to trust the latter. And again, this accounts for all of the media bias. You know who's saying what and why they're saying it. But the facts are the facts. I didn't have a problem with Iran before February 28th, and I still don't have a problem with them now. Do I want this problem to stop? Yes. And I'm looking at the United States government and the economy in disarray because apparently there was no plan at all. Our government has said it, including President Trump himself. We didn't anticipate them to close the strait. We didn't anticipate them to start bombing their neighbors. Well, then you weren't prepared. Which tells me, when you say that we're the best and brightest and most intelligent military in the world, I'll believe that. I support our military. But then what was this? Some Achilles heel? Or is this just how wars go? Clearly, this wasn't thought through. And now, again, I'm going to trust my own instincts. It looks like the balance has tipped. And yes, in favor of Iran. Of course, they're facing economic pressure. If they're applying pressure to our economy, the only way out of here is a resolution, a lasting one. But with neither side willing to acquiesce, who then has the leverage? Well, unless the United States is willing to take even more drastic measures, Iran has the upper hand right now. And there is nothing you could say to prove otherwise. The United States has offered to lift its blockade as Hormuz reopens, temporarily waive oil sanctions, consider releasing Iranian assets, and allow Iran to dilute enriched uranium inside the country. Look at the concessions we were making. Pay attention to the dynamic. We tried to rule with a big fist, but you know what happened? Iran took our best punch, and they're still alive. They have a new leader, and he's still alive. They have new emerging scientists, and they will begin to enrich uranium if they aren't already. These people are not stupid. I think at the very least, we can say that we grossly underestimated our adversary. But that is good news, I guess. There's at least been movement from both sides willing to come to an agreement. The central disagreement, of course, is control of the Strait of Hormuz. America wants every shipping lane reopened, no attacks on commercial vessels, no Iranian veto power over passage, and absolutely no mandatory tolls, because that makes things expensive for everyone and it enriches Iran, which would then, of course, just give them a much easier path to a nuclear weapon. Iran says it will not return to the system that existed before the war. Tehran once recognized authority over inbound Gulf traffic and has reportedly considered fees between 5% and 5 and 7% of a ship's cargo value. What? Oh, Iran ain't playing. See, because even if you look at both sides of the negotiating table, oh, Iran wants a lot more than the US wants. How are you going to police nuclear enrichment? You don't think these people are clever, are shrewd enough to get away with that? The only thing that's really left is Hormuz. And at this point in time, unless you are willing to occupy with foot soldiers, going into Iran with foot soldiers, there is no way that Iran is not going to get what they want. It's impossible. It's impossible. My guess is that the US is going to acquiesce. They're still going to declare victory. But Iran is going to get a lot of the concessions that they are asking for. Why? Because again, you only have two choices at this point. You either come to an agreement, and the only way Iran is going to do so is by getting most of what they're asking for. That's A. Remember, Iran is asking for money, right? They're asking for compensation for war damage. So is the United States. You think the United States really wants that money? This is just trying to, poke the bear. They don't really want that money. That's just what Trump said one day, because that's how he creates policy. Iran wants compensation for war damage. You think they're going to get it? Maybe the US government doesn't publicize it. Maybe they lift sanctions without nobody noticing. But they could do a lot without the public recognizing that we acquiesced. They're going to do what they have to do, because right now we're in a state of economic turmoil and there's no getting out of it. It is impossible. Not right now. We can't. You can create new pipelines, you can redirect oil, but you can only do so much in the next 2 years. You'd have to have all hands on deck. You'd have to spend hundreds of billions of dollars to try to get oil around the world and account for that 20% gap that's no longer flowing through the strait. It's impossible. I mean, you can listen to the experts. That's actually why I sold out of the stock market, because I'm waiting for a dip. And so far, I've been right this week. You got to ask yourself, if Iran doesn't get what it wants, why would it turn around and say, yeah, you can go, patch up your economy, United States? They know more than the average American knows. I'm talking about the Iranian government. And they know how much we're hurting right now. What would entice them? What would motivate them to just wake up one day and say, all right, well, the US, they're really mad at us. They already took our best punch. The only way that we can get oil prices back down, that we can reduce risk in credit markets, to have yields come back down so that the stock market could go back up, so that we can allay any concerns with inflation, which is a direct output from oil. The way we can heal our economy and normalize global markets, this isn't just affecting the United States, is by coming to a resolution. It's either that or recession. Oh yeah, we use the R word. We don't have a choice. Because again, you cannot redirect enough oil out of the Strait of Hormuz or any other place around the world. You cannot increase production to the level needed to cancel out what we're missing from the Strait of Hormuz fast enough. You cannot get there before 2 to 3 years out. And Iran knows this. So Iran says, well, the way I look at it, United States, President Trump, you bully, you got two choices. You either give us what we want, or there's going to be demand destruction. That's the only way prices come down. Enough people say, what? I cannot pay for $5, $6 gasoline. I can't. We're already at historic lows for our strategic petroleum reserve. We can't get the oil fast enough. We can't refine fast enough. So now we have to ask our government, how shrewd are you? You willing to take us all down with the ship? Or are you willing to cut a deal? Because you got to know, I mean, the US government doesn't want to hear this, but you got to know when you kind of don't have any more cards to play. Because right now, it's essentially check, not checkmate, because the US, they could do something far more drastic. Now, I don't really want to delve too much into that, but we're going to get into it a little bit more. There are reports that behind closed doors, they are talking about using nuclear weapons. Now, that shouldn't be shocking to anyone. It's unfortunate, but that shouldn't be shocking to anyone because you always have all your options on the table. But how would you feel? Let me ask you that question. If we used a nuclear weapon against Iran because of this war, I mean, most of us, I assume most people watching, were not alive for Hiroshima, Nagasaki, and Japan. We just have the history presented to us, but we don't really have the context. We didn't live through it. So when you think about what we did to Japan, the way that history was presented was that, hey, they bombed Pearl Harbor. We had to make a conscientious decision. It's either we send in ground troops, which would put us at risk, way more casualties on the American side, or we drop these two new bombs that we have nuclear weapons. We don't understand all of the ramifications. It's extremely inhumane, but we take the chance with that. And they took the chance. And history was written. What do you think? Imagine we actually used nuclear weapons against Iran. What would you say then? Would you then protest your government? I'm not talking about actual protests, but would you then say Trump is wrong? If you're a Trump supporter, where's your line? Would you be okay with that? For this war, yeah, the war that we all woke up to on February 28th, and we were like, oh shit, Iran's the enemy? And again, don't insult me. As if I wasn't told for years that they were the adversary, but come on. You did not wake up before February 28th being concerned with Iran, caring for Iran. Iran was nothing to you. Then the US government then you wake up one day and the US government says, hey, pay attention. Hey, that guy's the bad guy over there. So all things considered, I don't know. Me? That it would be, I don't even know what to say. If we used a nuclear bomb on Iran in this conflict, all things considered, I don't even know what to say. I would call everyone in the US government a criminal. Everyone who supported the measure is a criminal. Not a war criminal. They are a criminal. They should be expelled from the US government. I mean, we're talking about nuclear weapons here. And again, there are reports that they're talking about it. This week, they were talking about it. It's Tuesday. And I keep this in the backdrop. We can also send in our troops. How are you going to feel about that? You want your neighbors, soldiers that didn't really sign up for this shit, you want them to go sacrifice their lives for this conflict? This conflict. I'd be happier if they went into Israel and dismantled their government because they're a problem. Or I'd be happy if they went into Russia and dismantled their government because they're a problem. Astonishing. Now, Iran also wants oil sanctions lifted, frozen assets released. You remember those billions of dollars that Obama gave to Iran when we had our first nuclear agreement? Oh, yeah. We may do the same exact thing here. And maybe it's actual money. Maybe it's sanctions lifted. It doesn't matter. You know what Trump is going to do. We're going to ultimately come to an agreement here, no matter what. You can bring Iran to their knees. Unless you wipe out their government, it's not going to happen. They will always resist. At least that's been their MO. So what do? We're going to have to come to a resolution, which is good. I hope. I think all signs point towards that. But Iran says it will not return to the system that existed before the war. And they want an end to American and Israeli military operations and hostilities and compensation for war damage. Who do you think is going to flinch? America wants enforceable nuclear restrictions, inspections, freedom of navigation, and Iranian compensation for deaths and damage caused during the conflict. So each side is demanding that the other one pay. Each side believes control over Hormuz is non-negotiable. And that's why we have the deal falling apart, it seems like, week after week. The United States looked at Iran's demands and said, absolutely not. Iran looked at ours and gave us the same answer. So what are you left with? Who has the leverage right now? The weaponry is still on the American side. But the leverage, the economic leverage, the economic pain that they can inflict and are actively inflicting, oh yeah. Iran, I mean, this is a country that is used to having far less than we have as Americans. I'm not going to assume what they can withstand, but they're a resilient group. You're not going to just bully every country into submission. It doesn't work like that. And they are a textbook example. I mean, seriously, look at what we just did. As far as the public eye can see, I actually do believe Pete Hegseth and Donald Trump when they say we decimated their military. I believe that. We took a lot of their assets, resources out. They have been tremendously weakened. Doesn't mean they've lost. Doesn't mean they're all wiped out. Doesn't mean they're all dead. And most importantly, Iran understands the position that America is in, because they're as shrewd as they come. You wouldn't be the head of a government if you weren't. Iran's drones and short-range missiles are considerably cheaper than the American weapons used to intercept them. We can destroy a relatively inexpensive Iranian drone with an interceptor costing millions of dollars. And Iran can keep manufacturing more cheap weapons while we consume some of the most sophisticated and expensive munitions in the world. They're going to sit there all day and accept that trade-off. Oh yeah, you got a Patriot missile costing millions of dollars? Are you going to shoot down our little $500 drone because you need to protect your people? You need to protect your human resources, your soldiers, or whatever other assets? We're just firing away. And they don't give a shit because they could build them faster than we can build ours. The United States has reportedly used virtually all of our certain long-range precision missiles, nearly half of its worldwide Tomahawk inventory, and enormous portions of its Patriot and THAAD interceptor stockpiles. After 2 weeks, what did they say? This war cost us how much? $25 billion? Yeah, right. Yeah, right. You think the US government gives a shit about this money? Everyone's getting rich. All of the defense contractors. And oh yeah, the US government's profiting as well. As if Donald Trump isn't buying their stocks. As if Pete Hegseth isn't buying their stocks. Now, of course, the exact classified totals are disputed and hidden, but nobody disputes that our inventory has been substantially depleted. Why do you think we stopped all of a sudden? We're never going to admit that, right? You wouldn't want to show your cards. But why do you think we stopped all of a sudden? Why do you think Trump's stance all of a sudden is, we're going to apply economic pressure. It's time to apply some economic sanctions. Ooh, that's a far cry from his boisterous position just 2-3 months ago, even a month ago, even a couple weeks ago. You got to pay attention to this dynamic, right? And by the way, before you sit there and you say, oh, well, that's just the media. This has nothing to do with the media. It literally came from the horse's mouth and all of the other horses around that horse. His entire cabinet echoes what he says, that being Donald Trump, or parrots him directly. Now, of course, those weapons are not only for Iran. So I got to ask, isn't President Trump and our government putting us at tremendous national security risk? I think so. We're bombing the hell out of Iran. They are our enemy as of February 28th, 2026. Okay, fine. All right, whatever, Iran. What about Russia? What about China? What about North Korea? And any other adversary watching how much ammunition this war is consuming. Case in point, you remember when Russia started bombing Ukraine? What did Vladimir Putin say? It was a special military operation. And he said it would last 3 days, to the tune of 3 days. We are 5 years into that war. And oh, by the way, this started back with Crimea. It only escalated in 2021. Sorry, it only escalated in 2022. So we are 4 years into that war. I'd say just a few months in, everyone started asking themselves, some superpower Russia is. I thought they said that this was going to take 3 days to topple Ukraine. I thought they said that they would conquer and displace the government in 3 days. Some special military operation that is. So then how does the public look at that? I'm not talking about any media bias. The way I looked at it was, damn, maybe Russia really isn't that strong. Like they say they are, right? Because if Russia went up against the United States, I don't think they stand a chance. They couldn't conquer Ukraine. But now we look at the United States. Now we don't have ground troops over there, but we kind of do, right? We have them at military bases stationed in and around the area, right? We have them on naval vessels. It's not like we have no ground troops. We just don't have them in Iran, so far as we know. But how do you think the whole world is looking at the United States? Not only are they saying that they're a bully, but they're also looking at them and saying, damn, like you guys said that you were going to do this in like 3-4 weeks. It's been 5-6 months. And oh, by the way, I'm paying attention to it as a global citizen because it's affecting my fucking life. Everyone is paying more for groceries. Everyone is paying more for gasoline. And oh, by the way, if now we're hearing reports that they've depleted their arsenal, so much so that they actually stopped bombing Iran, what does that say about the American superpower narrative? I'm just saying. I don't know how you manage that public opinion. The facts are out. So now what happens when we cut a deal? How weak do you think the US government will look? Now, of course, all these weapons cannot be replaced next month. Some production lines will need years to rebuild. What we've used is a foregone conclusion. Was it planned out strategically? I don't think so. You wouldn't need to stop so abruptly if you did plan it out better, right? I mean, let's be really simple with the narrative here. We're running out of bullets. The human cost is also becoming visible. The USS Abraham Lincoln spent more than 200 consecutive days at sea without a port visit. Sailors and their families reported exhaustion, deteriorating living conditions, and serious mental health concerns, including alleged suicide attempts. Now, of course, the Navy disputes this categorically, that the suicidal behavior increased. Oh, really? Someone literally jumped off board. At least 7 others had to be stopped from jumping off board. That's what we're doing to our US military? I mean, they're American, right? I don't know what else to say. How are you not upset with your leadership? These are your fellow countrymen defending you, and they're being neglected. They're being ignored. Not only were they complaining on the ship for months, but so were their families when they got the chance to speak to them. I mean, wow. I don't know what else to say. Well, let's call a spade a spade. Our leadership is inept. Our leadership does not know what they are doing. Our leadership has not planned well enough. Our leadership does not care about our soldiers enough. Our leadership is throwing our economy into disarray. Do not just pay attention to the stock market numbers. And if you do, pay attention to all the numbers tertiary to that. Yeah, the S&P 500, Dow Jones, Russell 2000 are at all-time highs. What about bond yields? All-time highs? Oh yeah. The bond vigilantes, they know something. When you see bonds that high, that means there's a lot more concern than the eye can see. Don't confuse or misrepresent what you see with the stock market and the underlying dynamic, which is always changing in the stock market. Case in point, the correlation 20 years ago was bond yields go up, stock market goes down. Now they can actually move in sync. But that doesn't always work. Not 100% of the time. There's no such thing as a perfect correlation. So what happens when that breaks? Oh, there's going to be some real economic pain. I think a recession would be the best case scenario if things continue the way they are. Because again, right now, we don't have any other choice than to come to a resolution. And I fully expect that the US government is going to reach across to Iran and make a deal. We don't have another choice. I'd be surprised if every world leader is not reaching out to Trump right now. I'm talking about right now. Like we've reached a breaking point. Strategic petroleum reserves down. I mean, oil going up, inflation going up, bond yields going up. And Iran sees all of this. They see that our weapons are being depleted. They see the strain on our military. They see the pressure on American consumers. They see oil above $90. Oil should be $150. Take it from the experts, not from me. We've been keeping oil prices buoyed because we've been using our reserves. Who else is watching us do that? China, North Korea, Russia. They see inflation remaining above the Federal Reserve's target. And they see governments around the world paying dramatically more to borrow money. The American 30-year Treasury yield has climbed above 5.3%, its highest level since 2007, 19-year highs. Britain's 30-year borrowing costs, their 30-year bond, reached their highest level since 1998, 28 years. Japan's 10-year government bond yield reached its highest level in about 30 years. Long-term borrowing costs in France and Germany are also near levels not seen in decades. So you do not need to wait for a 20% stock market decline before acknowledging that something serious is happening underneath the surface. Rising oil and bond yields do not technically place stocks in a bear market. But if you pay attention to behavioral psychology, the S&P 500 can remain near record highs while the bond market, oil markets, and consumers are telling a completely different story. Technology can remain high. Bond yields can remain at 20-year highs. And I don't care how reassuring the inflation reports look as of late. If people are still feeling higher prices throughout their daily lives, what actually matters? You do realize the last inflation report, our Federal Reserve and our US government were applauding. Seriously. That's because inflation is taming itself. Do you think prices are going to come down? When do prices come down? Oil, yes. Oil will fluctuate. When are you going to pay lower prices for milk again? Or for eggs? In perpetuity, we establish a new floor. Do you think you're ever going to see 50-cent pizza again? Do you ever think you're going to see a $2 slice again? Impossible. So we see all of the data, and so does Iran. They know that these bond yields, these credit markets, they know that this is untenable. And they know that the longer a deal isn't reached, the longer it puts the state of the American economy in a precarious position. And that's saying it lightly. I guarantee you, I will guarantee you. And by the way, anybody that guarantees anything in the stock market is a fool. We have two paths. It's actually three paths. We either do something extremely drastic. I'm talking about ground troops in Iran or a nuclear weapon, which they are talking about now. We cut a deal, which God willing they do. Or there's demand destruction, and you're talking about a recession. If we stay on this course, no deal, no ground troops, no other drastic measures, there's no way in hell we're not going to go into a recession. There's no way. And there's no guarantees in the market. But I'd be preparing for one. I'd literally be, I'm already selling all my stocks. Now, to many, they're going to say that's foolish because Trump could announce a deal tomorrow and stocks will probably resume making all-time highs again. But I got to manage my risk. So I'm getting out. Because right now, there needs to be acquiescence on the American side, not the Iranian side. I'm not going to say they're not going to concede anything. That's ridiculous. I'm sure they will. Both sides have to feel like they came away with something like they won. Although, we were the antagonists, were we not? The provocateurs. You might say that it was Iran, but we hit first and we hit very hard. They're still standing. They know that. And right now they have the leverage. And remember, consumers do not experience inflation through a government spreadsheet. They experience it when they fill up their gas, they buy their groceries, they renew a lease, or they try to finance a home. We just hit all-time highs on rent records here in New York City. Is that a surprise to anyone? It wasn't to me. So right now, we need to account for 20% of the world's oil. And there are only a few ways to create major relief quickly. Iran cooperates and shipping through Hormuz returns closer to normal. Other producers somehow replace some of the missing supply, which is extremely difficult to accomplish rapidly. That's not going to happen. Listen to the experts. They said it's impossible. Or prices remain high enough to destroy demand because families around the world and businesses can no longer afford to consume as much. Did you hear that last one? That's like depressive. I'm not saying depression, but depressive. Price is so high that people just say, I can't afford it. I can't. Oh yeah, how's that for economic pain? And I'm not even being extreme here, right? I'm not even exaggerating. I literally pulled my stocks out of the market. Like I literally sold off. We have to see a deal with Iran. Then I'll feel comfortable again in buying equities. Because yes, new pipelines can eventually bypass some Hormuz traffic. Yes, America can release oil from its strategic reserves. Yes, other producers can add barrels around the edges. But Bessent, Scott Bessent that is talking about what might happen 3, 4, or 5 years from now. And that does not solve the problem, the economic pressure we face today. Iran knows that. They know that they don't have to defeat the United States militarily in a conventional war. And they know that they can't. America has destroyed Iranian ships, aircraft, missile sites, and production facilities. But Iran only has to survive. And they have. How much longer do they have to prove it? They are still dispersing weapons. They're creating them faster than we can create ours. They're using cheaper drones and missiles, raising the costs tremendously, significantly, disproportionately with the United States. Literally a $500 drone versus a $1 million Defender missile. And they continue to restrict Hormuz traffic and wait for the economic, military, and political cost of this war to become acceptable to the American public, to become unacceptable to the American public. That's the strategy. Oh, that's a real strategy. Not one where after 5 weeks, Trump says, well, we said 5 weeks, but it's going to be a few more weeks. And then after a few more weeks, he says a few more weeks. And then after a few more weeks, he says, remember, they can't have a nuclear weapon. And he just says whatever he wants to say. And then he openly admits that they didn't expect any of this. Shows you how prepared our military was. That's how a weaker country can create leverage against a much stronger military. This is David versus Goliath here. Iran is also aware that the United States cannot focus exclusively on one adversary. American leaders must preserve enough weapons and military capacity to respond to China in the event, Russia, North Korea, and every other potential crisis. So time may now be working in Iran's favor. Maybe America destroyed a significant portion of Iran's arsenal. I don't think anybody doubts that. That's a real military accomplishment. But Iran's government survived. It still possesses weapons. The strait remains severely disrupted. Tehran does not accept America's conditions. And even if Iran agreed to dismantle everything tomorrow, who honestly believes it would never attempt to rebuild some of those capabilities covertly? So then I gotta ask, what the fuck did we accomplish? Other than killing a whole bunch of innocent people, raising our debt extraordinarily, putting our American soldiers at risk. For what? For an enemy that was introduced to us on February 28th, 2026? Because Trump also admitted that bombing infrastructure can delay a weapons program. But it cannot erase the knowledge required to recreate it, no matter how many scientists you kill. So what are Trump's remaining options? He can return to negotiations, accept some Iranian demands, reopen Hormuz, and declare that America achieved its objectives. He can continue the blockade and economic sanctions, hoping Iran breaks before oil prices, inflation, borrowing costs, and depleted weapons. He can continue the blockade and economic sanctions, hoping Iran breaks before oil prices, inflation, borrowing costs, and depleted weapons create even greater problems for us. He can dramatically intensify the bombing, or he can move toward the one escalation that could completely change this war, sending American ground forces into Iran. Trump has not announced a ground invasion, but Hegseth has refused to rule one out. And Trump is no longer placing a clear time limit on this conflict. So I want to ask Trump supporters directly. If he sends American troops into Iran, are you still going to support him for this war? Are you going to say occupying a country of approximately 90 million people is suddenly necessary for global security? Are you going to accept another open-ended Middle Eastern war from the president who spent years promising to end them? He already told you this operation would be short. He already told you Iran's military had been destroyed. He already told you that we won. At what point do you stop accepting a new explanation every time the previous promise falls apart? Have you ever had a contractor do work in your house? Hey, you said it's going to take 2 weeks. All right, 1 more week. Hey, come on, you said 1 more week. All right, 1 more week. Hey, you said that 2 weeks ago. Like, dude, now it's 4 weeks. How many more weeks? I want to kill this contractor. Who else do you trust to give you that many excuses before you wake up and smell the coffee? Because unless Iran accepts a deal, America faces a brutal choice. We either accept enough of Iran's conditions to reopen Hormuz, or we become considerably more aggressive militarily without any guarantee that further escalation produces the political outcome we want. Eventually, both sides will declare victory. Trump will say America destroyed Iran's arsenal and forced Tehran into an agreement. Iran will say it survived the strongest military in the world, maintained its government, and forced Washington to negotiate. That is how modern wars end. When there is no unmistakable loser, both sides give a victory speech, and history gets rewritten around whichever version people choose to believe. But we are watching this in real time. Do not forget the events that have unfolded. Forget the declarations and judge the result. Did Iran permanently abandon its nuclear and missile ambitions? Do you believe that? Did Hormuz reopen without Iranian authority, tolls, or conditions? Do you think that we have free passage now? The statistics show you that there's virtually no traffic through the Strait of Hormuz. Who are you going to believe? Did the Iranian government fall like we said it did? And did this make Americans safer? Was it worth the lives, the tens of billions of dollars already spent, the depleted weapons, higher energy prices, and the possibility of an even larger war? The United States has proven that it can destroy almost any target inside Iran. Iran has proven that destroying targets is not the same thing as winning a war. You see what's happening in front of your own eyes. Do not let the US government's narrative overtake your own truth. because anyone can publish whatever they want in the history books. But we are seeing this real time. All right. Thanks for watching. See you next time.